Hey guys, it's Maria here with another teaching tip. This week I wanted to touch on priesthood and priesthood keys. Since that's the big theme coming up in June, I wanted to give you some object lessons that you could work with to help teach your classes, and then also just as you teach your families, some visuals that will help kids break down this really big topic into smaller bite-sized pieces. So generally when I teach about priesthood keys, I like to talk about a bank vault. So most kids have either seen a bank vault or they've seen a movie where someone robs a bank vault, so they're sort of familiar with how it looks. It helps, I think, to have a visual. So I just go on Google Images and I search and I find a bank vault picture kind of like this. And I try and talk to them about how in a bank vault, especially where the safety deposit boxes are, there are two locks on every single box. So there's one lock that the key is given to the person who owns the vault, who has access to that vault like me. And then the other key is held by the bank manager or the owner. And I talk about how that's kind of like what the priesthood is. So the priesthood keys, or the power to act in the name of God here on earth, is given to our prophet today. And then he delegates certain pieces of that priesthood out to others. So his apostles and bishops and stake presidents and all those people who act in the name of God on earth are holding that second key. So he's like the bank manager, and then we are in the church, those who are actively serving in the priesthood, they hold that second key. And how I think that visual helps teenagers is because I think you can understand how if you're not acting in accordance with how God would like that key used, that second key isn't offered to you, so it can be pulled back. But I think the visual of understanding that that's what a key is and that's how it works, at least for me, helps me understand a little bit more about the priesthood keys. Couple other things I think are interesting about the priesthood keys is we tend to think of keys and we think of this, right? We think of little gold keys, and that is a good object lesson for priesthood keys. They help us unlock things. They help us open things. But if you look in like a Webster's dictionary, there are actually 30 some odd different definitions for keys. And I think it's really helpful when you're teaching, especially when you're going to teach 4 weeks in a row about priesthood and priesthood keys, to maybe pull out a few of those other definitions and talk about how the priesthood applies in that way as well. So I thought I'd show you a few of my favorites. First off, let's see, let me switch back. So first off, like a map. They all know what a map key is, right? The legend that shows what things mean. How does that apply to the priesthood? How does that help us understand seeing a certain code and how it applies to a bigger picture? Can that apply to the priesthood? So you could focus that object lesson 1 week. Another one that's on this map is, it's called the key to a place. So a key to a place is a way to open up or a way to access something that's otherwise inaccessible. So if you know where Gibraltar is, kind of by Morocco, it is seen as the key to the Mediterranean because it's the way that you can enter into the Mediterranean. So you can talk about how geographically that helps us understand the priesthood. How does it give us access to an area that we otherwise wouldn't be able to access? And that's we'll start some discussion. Another good one is a code key, so a cipher, like the Morse code. This is a key. It helps us understand things that couldn't be understood otherwise, right? It breaks down code or something that's written in a different time period, and it helps us understand it. So how can the priesthood apply to this type of key? Another one is an answer key, like they've seen on every test they've ever taken. There's always a key that gives you all the answers if you know how to read it. So that's another good one to discuss and talk about why the priesthood is like an answer key for us. The last one that I really like is this is a key. So this is a bike key, but a key in the machinist world is any kind of piece or structure that transfers torque from one place to the other. So in this example, if I'm fixing a bike, I'm going to put this key into a gear or a socket of some kind, and I'm going to be able to transfer torque from this hand to this gear over here. And that I think is a really cool visual for what the priesthood is. It's taking power from one source and transferring it to another and giving you the ability to move. It's giving you the ability to put working parts in motion. And that I think is a really cool visual about what the priesthood does for us on this earth. So there are lots of them. There are like 30 more of them. So I encourage you, as you're teaching this month, to go and find out more about keys. One, search the scriptures and find out more about the priesthood keys and how they are transferred. But also dig into the definition of keys and find cool ways to teach, because every one of those definitions is an object lesson waiting to happen so that your kids can understand what the priesthood power is and how they can use it, both women and men, how they access it, how they use the priesthood power. So I encourage you to check it out this month. And then I will be back next week with some more object lessons and ideas. All right, thanks guys.